And my sister, my oldest sister, was married. There's a meeting hall here, you see.
Aye, aye.
Well, my father was, he was well, he was in the meeting all his life. Baptised in the burn.
Aye.
Skins and that on.
Aye.
And his boots, and he'd turn them off the water and swim ashore.
Aye, by Jove. So if it says the boats were that they were working on?
Oh, they were not very big. Boats about 24 feet, I suppose.
Aye.
I've seen, when I was a boy, you see they used to go up the Hiram. Well, it's near all the sailboats, they give that type. And then in the winter time they work at the small lines. Well, you see, when they were the summer on Yarn with fish on, the small boats was all lined up along the beach, the edge of the beach.
Aye.
Near all the young men had small boats. So they were gone on them, you see. And then, of course, when the war came, that finished it.
Finished it, aye. It's never really recovered for the war.
No. We're here, but supposed to be the smallest airman in Britain, so they say.
Aye.
And there was a bit in the paper a few weeks ago about sons. And our sons supposed to be the cleanest son in Britain.
Aye.
And you can't build with that son out over there. It's too fine. The time of the war, the distillery over there, the Naffy, it wasn't working, you see. It worked, it was always good first. And we never got it, you see. You had to get 19 folk to get it. You had to get that. And they would put it down the list, but never got it. We didn't get it left of the war. The same with the water. We'd no water. We'd no sewer here. We'd no sewer here till about 1940s. It was still in, it was after the war, when it was 1947, I think. That was a wall up there, not supplied near the village.
Aye.
And it didn't make a full warm summer it was. That water was as cold as ice. So it came to the rock.
Aye.
And every year, we used to started to work, and before that, we used to lift every year, my uncle of mine, this chap that told you 10 of his elskins that in the water, he used to put a notice up here, you look at after the wall, you see. He just put a notice up, but the wall was going to be cleaned in a day. And you hear 6pence to pay for the cleaning. It would swear to get cement and that, you see. And we lifted 2 big stones on the top of the wall, and there's 3 sections in it. And it's the filters was that bricks with holes in them. And that's what filtered the water, you see. And we, 2 or 3 oars used to go in, maybe 2 on each section, and we were cloaked and held it through every hole to clean them. Did that steady.
That's amazing.
No, with no sanitary. We had a hoosie up beside the lock door there, and Celtics, can that Celtics, that's what we had. Well, you see, my wife, she came from the country, but she was in service, you see. And when she came, when we got married, and her came down here, when I told her, it was a chap Mitchell, obviously, sure it was a chap Mitchell, was the captain. And good, they were flocking to the book, the Jehovah Witnesses is the hall now. The book this hall, and the oak, it was the pocket every day. We used to get in, it was loans, before I was working. Before I left the school, we used to get in. And 1921, that's when I year was. We used to go up in the gallery, and there were the lads, tough, right tough lads in Portsoy, standing up and getting their, supposed to get saved and getting their testimony. Their sins was as high as the mountains, and now they were doing as low as molehills. There was a lad, he stood up and he said, "What would you think?" He was supposed to say it and saved. "What would you think if you went to your bed tonight and found yourself dead in the morning?" The ken this, I believe, it's the biggest Salvation Army band in Britain. And travelled from here to Keith and get tea to every quarter house and every village and firm between this and Keith. Selling fish. She used to go out of here at 4 o'clock in the morning, and then she came back the train. Glasgow station was up there, you see. And used to come back in this 6 o'clock train for Keith at night.
They had a very hard life, didn't they, really?
And my father was gone to Lions, and the family, plus my other sister, she was a orphan, she was young, but my other two sisters and my brother, they had, my mother, shielded the muscles and that the next afore, and then the twackwounds and the loan, and my brother made at the Lines when she was at work. My father was about to see at the Lines. So,
it had been a pretty hard life, though.
oh,
Yeah?
but there's one thing I never did for winters.
No, no. If what was
You
that?
see, well, you see, it wasn't money to go that time of day, it was butter. She would have maybe gotten butter or eggs or sometimes a chicken or cheese or anything of that. Just for the fish, you see. So they didn't have all them that time, they just didn't. She wanted me to start, I wish I didn't know. Start for one of the bands here, making us fortunes, you know. No, I wouldn't have did, I was wanting about the sea. And, but she wanted me to get a horse and a carty, a sheltie, and go and sail fish where, you see, but no, nothing. And she always said, she says, the day I stop going with a creel, that's me finished. She says, my legs will go, and that's what happened.
Is that right?
That's right. She lived till she was 73, my father was 78. The family's all older than them. My older sister was over 90 when she died, and she died in 1978. And a brother and a sister left here. My sister died over 90, left in Edinburgh until she went to, she got to Edinburgh when she was 18 and died when she was 92. And a sister and a brother had died, lived here, and they were both over 80. My sister lived in that house over there. Poor young guy bought it. And my sister's still living, my youngest sister, there's 11 years between me and her.
Trophy,
Aye, aye. So you travelled actually to London to receive that, did you?
That's right, the modern proud years.
Oh, that's amazing.
Margaret C.
Was it?
Our Sandend and crew was that.
Isn't it, aye?
In fact, they were near our brothers.
So, it's amazing, that, isn't it? Aye. So were you
That
along?
was my mother's brother.
Your brother's boat, aye. Do you mind the number of that boat, by any chance, no?
PF 1882.
Is that right? Aye. You haven't got a photograph of it, by any chance?
No, I had him alone.
No, no. So, who did it feel working in a boat? We a crew, it was all more Australian folk?
Oh, I was all right working with them. They were very good to me.
Aye.
And they, as folk get into.
Aye.
Used to have that toy.
So, find the fish who's here now? Now
That's
listen.
Sutherland, Joyce Sutherland. But my grandfather had bedroom there now. He died when he was only about 45 years old.
Is that right? Why was that?
It was cancer that was wrong there.
Aye,
I was 40. And that was my grandmother's. That in there.
Oh, that in here, and it's still standing.
That's still standing now. And that was our house.
It's through the back.
Aye. Now I did it up till about 3 years ago. And I sold it to my sister, and my sister and them get the bump to work. And they, as folk get into.
Aye.
Used to have that toy.
So find the fish who's here.
House here, that grey house, he was called Pro. Oh, there were a lot of different lads that been in this place out in the houses, different names, but I can't mind all their names now.
But there must be a change in the village now, but it
Oh,
used to be.
big change.
Mm-hmm.
This time of year now, the boats have been out this summer fishing to the heron. Now with that boats don't be with that line boats. They used to be pulled up along the road, up along the beach here.
To the shore.
Time to a walk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Portsoy has got a very interesting history, and the harbour, the old harbour, was the first harbour was built on the Aberdeenshire coast. It was about 1693, that's when it was completed, thereabout. And the railway used to go down there latterly, but 1859 or something. The railway terminus was down at the harbour of Portsoy, and there's a goods extension for the railway station down to the harbour. Now, Portsoy was a very busy place at that time with the merchant ships that used to come and go. They used to go to the Baltic with a heron, loads of heron, go to the Baltic ports in Germany, and they used to back loads of bones and timber and that sort of thing. The bones went to the local mill to be processed for fertiliser, and there was one or two of the smaller local ships used to do local trading. The George L. Monroe, that was one of them. Old Jimsy Wade was the skipper. They used to go to the Tyne ports, Sunderland and Newcastle and that for coal, take up at Portsoy. And oatmeal for the mill, wrote the various ports. They went round the west coast of Scotland sometimes with loads of oatmeal, the various ports storing away that areas.
Portsoy must have been a busy place during the times of the fishing, the heron fishing.
The heron fishing, Portsoy was a very busy place in the heron time. In fact, a while about the turn of the century, or maybe it's a wee bit earlier, there were folks used to come, local boats for Cullen and Portnoky, and the nearby ports used to come Portsoy to do the heron fishing. There was heron curers, 2 or 3 heron curers here. The main one was Peter and J. Sutherland, Peter and John E. Sutherland. Peter was the heron curer, and they had yards in Portsoy here, and there was Finlay, Tom Finlay, he had a curing yard here. He was another man that did the heron curing. There was quite a fleet of boats worked out of here about the turn of the century, and quite a good fleet of the big Zulu boats that replaced the smaller scoffy type things around about that time. And then of course, as time went on, the 1914 war came, and things kind of changed then. The Zulus gradually were replaced by steam drifters. The first steam drifter came Portsoy in 1910, It was called the Daisy. So they gradually built up a good fleet of heron drifters, the steam drifters, after the war, or before the war, well, for the war time. And then there was a few boats built by the Admiralty, they called standard boats. That was drifters that were built to specification, that was why they called standard boats. And they were used by the Admiralty for mine sweeping and tenders, attending the ships, the bigger ships. And after the war, quite a lot of the fishermen bought their standard boats and used them for the heron fishing, and they were fairly successful. Now, you can the heron fishing was operated on the northern coast of Scotland this summertime, months of June, July and August. And then of course in October and November we went out to Yarmouth and Lowestoft. The whole fleet, the north of Scotland, and all the gutted women and coal merchants and all went, followed the fleet of course.
Was Portsoy a busy heron curing port?
Oh aye. On that Peter and J. Sutherland, they had a fairly big event here, and that Tom Finlay, he had a fairly big business here and all. And of course there was other associated business where the Cooper made the barrels between the seasons. That was a fairly big business. Between the heron seasons they made the barrels for the heron season when they come up again, you see. A few of the fishermen had they got scoffies, half-sized boats fitted with petrol paraffin engines, 30-40 feet boats. We operated the haddock line fishing. Now, we operated that for Portsoy, of course. Now, that was a very hard business, a lot of work attached to that. We carried 3 lines, they cut 3 half lines every day. Now, on each of that lines, there was 480 to 500 hooks. So that 3 lines of that was roughly about 12 to 1500 hooks. Now the women had to shield mussels. We got mussels for bait for the various river estuaries, Montrose and Morecambe and Findhorn, only that estuaries for those mussels, which to get the mussels for there by rail. And the women had to shield the lines, shield the mussel and bait the lines. That time we were at the sea. We were at the sea with the lines. They go out in the early morning, of course. 1, 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, depending how the tide was. Out in the early morning, get the lines into the water before daylight.
So, going through Portsoy not all our days, there would have been a lot of activity in the streets and in the lanes. Folk would have been baiting lines and everything. Would every part of the community be in hustle and bustle during that time?
Oh, well, mostly so, mostly so. You see, there was big families. There are usually big families at that time of day. There was that much work at such, there's men and nets and baiting lines. But every member of the family had to do their part. And before you went to school even, you'd maybe to do something. And after you come home from the school at night, was do the homework, and then if there were any odd jobs to do, you had to go and do it. But there were some of the families, if the men was at this haddock line business, they took a fish home. They kept the fish and didn't sell them to the merchant, and took them home, and they went round the town and the local country area and sold them. They smoked and dried the things, you see.
And of course, there would have been a lot of fishwives at that time going round about.
Oh, aye.
Can you tell us about them for Portsoy?
Oh, aye. There's quite a few codgers as we called them, mostly widows that did this. They would have gone down to the harbour and bought a box of fish, 100 weight or so of fish, and then they took them home and cleaned them and got at them, smoked them, and then smoked them overnight, of course. They did a smoke shed where they smoked the fish with sawdust and wood chippings, and then they would have caught the first train away up to Tullynacht or away up to Keith, away up to Huntley. That was usually the routine. They caught the first train and they would come off the train at their various places where they were going and walk home, sell their fish on the way home as they walked back to Portsoy, the various farms and crofts. And my wife's granny was a cadger, and there was what we call a yearly heron fishing in Macduff. In the month of April and May, they got heron out in the firth, fairly close inshore. Now this yearly heron was sold about 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. Now, old Jeannie Gardner, that was her name, my wife's granny, she had to get down to Macduff for us heron at that time of the morning. Now there was no buses, so she used to walk to Whitehills, go down to Whitehills the night before, stay with a relative down in Whitehills, and then walk 2.5 miles from Whitehills to Macduff in the morning, 4, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. And when she bought her heron, she carried them to Banff Station. She had to carry them to Banff Station because there's very few buses or anything like that at that time, way back in the 1920s. Carry them to Banff Station and then come home to Portsoy in the train and split them and kipper them and do them up ready for sale in Portsoy and around the country area.
You worked out a bucket one time with a boat. Can you tell us about bucket?
The fishing, the only fishing I actually did about bucket was cod net fishing for cod. In the month of March and April, the cod used to come out in the Murray Firth and draw in shoals, you see, spawning for spawning. And we worked cod nets. Oh, it was nets about 5, 6 feet deep, 5 or 6 feet depth, 10-inch mesh, roughly like that. And we put out this nets away out in the centre of the firth. And back into bucket. We left the nets out there overnight, anchored them overnight out in the firth. And then back into bucket, and then away out in the morning, first thing in the morning, away out, pick up the nets and haul in the nets, take the fish out of them and lay them, shoot them out again, run them out again once we got the fish out of them. And then into bucket, and we sold the fish local to the local merchants in bucket. That was done for the month of March and April. And then from that, I'd finished, of course, when the cod spawned.
How long ago was that, Jim?
Oh, I'm speaking about 1930, thereabout. The years slightly before and after that. About 1920s, not the 1930s. The 1930s, early 1930s when I was at the cod fishing. It was in Banff, but it never became anything of a major port. Macduff really carried the banner as a fishing port rather than Banff.